Welcome to Polygon.com. I am Charlie Hall. I'm joined today by our features editor, Matt Leone. How you doing, Matt?
I am well, sir.
Today we are actually going to talk about one of the first of many games coming for Oculus Rift, and this is called Chronos. Now, Matt, you and I both had a chance to experience Chronos when we were at GDC last week, the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco. What is this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's like an action-adventure RPG hybrid of sorts. I think they describe it as an adventure game mixed with some kind of puzzle-solving and RPG elements. Obviously, if you watch the trailer, I think the perspective that you look at it is a kind of a big deal. There's certain shots in here that the camera is static. There's certain shots where the camera kind of follows the character, and there's certain shots where it seems like it's moving. But the game itself is kind of interesting, I think, largely because of the camera perspective, in that each room is kind of static, but you can look around it. So you go into a room, and then you control the camera within that space, but you're not kind of moving. The camera doesn't move unless you move your head, basically.
Well, so much of the problem with VR is like, what is the player, right? So many of the talks that happen at GDC are like, is the player a disembodied ghost? Is it a first-person perspective? And what the folks that are making Kronos have done is they've made the Oculus this fixed camera within the environment, almost kind of like a security camera, almost. And you'll notice right here, the character's going to go out the door, but then the perspective changes to outside the room, but the camera's focused at the same point in space. So they do these little like handoffs from camera to camera within the game to like keep the user focused, the point in space that their little third-person character is at.
Yeah, it's very much like the old like Resident Evil games in that sense. It's just interesting because like it feels almost like a little diorama or something like that. The good of it, like the way they describe is why they went that way is because it kind of leaves the control up to you, so you're not being like pulled forward, so you can theoretically have a more relaxing kind of experience over, because it's a long game. It's like a 12 to 14 hour game, they say.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I mean that's why I think they went this approach. Honestly, when I was playing it, I had a little bit. And this may just be like the way I was playing, but it was a little uncomfortable for me.
How so?
Because basically, like when I play a game where it gives me control of the camera, I like to guide the camera like perfectly as best I can. So like if I'm moving my character an inch, I want the camera to move that inch, so I'm like centered on the screen. And in this case, because like you pop into a room and then your character maybe starts on the far left side, but when you're looking at it, you can't see the whole room unless you look to the right side. So basically, as I ran from the left side to the right side of the screen, my head would be like slowly tracking the player as I ran across. And at first, that didn't bother me at all. But after a while, there were a lot of rooms, and granted, I only played this about half an hour, so I don't know how this holds up for the whole game. But in that time, like as I was going from each room, it'd be like, okay, now is the time where I have to like look to the left and then slowly look to the right. And I just found like I was repeating that motion a lot, and it was a little bit annoying because I was like, okay, I'm just turning and back and forth, and it seemed like very repetitive. And at times, I would have to like strain my neck just to like see where the player entered the room.
Yeah, I can see that, kind of like the tennis match effect, like you're just kind of moving left to right over and over again.
Yeah, it's like if you're sitting zoomed way out, like in it depends on which rooms they had. Like if you're sitting in the back of the tennis stadium, you can see the whole thing no matter what. But if you're sitting in like the front line, then in order to see every ball, you'd have to like rotate back and forth every time.
Yeah, I really love the Dark Souls games that From Software makes, and that it reminded me so much of those Dark Souls games, the way that the combat played out. And I'm not particularly skilled, so I'm sure that there's a lot of differences and nuance that I missed. But the other thing that I love about those From Software games is the environments that they create. They're such coherent and well-connected and well-architected environments, and they're also incredibly bizarre. And to get the perspective that the Oculus gives you to look around and to see how all the different environments and platforms are connected was really a treat in Kronos. I really enjoyed being the camera.
Yeah. No, I think the environments are really well designed too. Like there is a lot of kind of, well, at least as they say, there's a lot of adventure game elements in there. And so like when I was playing, it's puzzles like you have to go find a key card and then come back to a computer and unlock it. And pretty simple stuff, at least early on, but this is just the beginning of the game. But certainly you will not just like start from one place and end another place. Like you're going to be going back and forth in these rooms. And I think that was partially why I felt like I was moving my head back and forth a little bit. But yeah, I think the sense of being in these places and like the I don't know exactly the different names of the environments and that kind of things, but like you're running through trees and you're fighting like enemies that look like this, and they're not really rooted in reality. That's like it's this whole fantasy world that it does have a nice feel to it. On the Dark Souls level, like I had a hard time telling just how deep the combat system goes when I was playing it. I liked it, but it was fairly simple what I was playing. The way they described it though is pretty interesting in that like early on it's a lot of combat, which is fairly straightforward. But then you kind of start to earn magic abilities, and like as you level your character, he kind of like matches the way a person would be as they get older. So like you get stronger up to a certain age, and then you start to get like weaker after that point because you start to get older, and then your magic improves instead at that point. So it's really hard to say because we haven't seen that much of the game, but it seems like they are doing some interesting stuff as far as like how you evolve over the course of the game.
When you die, you come back and you're allowed to start the journey over from the beginning, but you've aged a decade, and it goes up to, I think, about 80 years old. And when you're younger, it's much cheaper to spend your experience points and boost your strength and your agility and things like that. But when you're older, it's much cheaper to spend that experience to boost, like you were saying, some of your magic abilities. So that kind of that old age and treachery and versus youth and strength. This bookshelf was my favorite experience in VR, I think, at GDC. This isn't me playing. This is all B-roll that I got from the folks that are making Kronos. But the way you could actually lean in and over and on top of the action, it was actually more than just what this person's doing is looking around. You can actually move within the space. I just thought it was incredibly clever and just a really interesting use of VR. Here you are in this room at an unprecedentedly small scale, and really able to experience it in 360 degrees. I thought it was just great.
Yeah, I saw there were a couple different Rift games that were at GC that kind of reminded me of playing on like a kitchen table with a bunch of toys, and I feel like this kind of gives off that feel too. It's like you're not really doing anything different apart from looking around, but it gives it a whole different feel from the perspective you're in. And honestly, in this video, it doesn't really look like anything special. It just looks like a normal third-person game with maybe a little bit of leaning, but it's different when you have when you're there.
And so this is going to be a launch title for Oculus, is that correct?
Yes, yeah, launch title, so it should be out, next week?
Yeah, the 28th. So thanks very much for taking the time, Matt.
Anytime.